Welcome to Autism ADHD TV. It is the place to be for parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc Moses, the mom psychologist who gets it. We dive into all kinds of important information like behavior, social skills, and learning. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Keisha Pruden, back to the Autism ADHD podcast and Autism ADHD TV.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am excited that you're here. We talked just last week about how to best advocate for your child. And today, which is equally or more important, of course, actually more important, is teaching children to advocate for themselves. Before I do that, I'm going to do an introduction. I know most of our watchers and listeners already know you, but everybody, Keisha Pruden is a self-proclaimed country girl who lives in North Carolina with her husband, Paul, and their two sons, Aaron and Bryant. Keisha is a licensed psychotherapist, autism advocate, public speaker, blogger, published author, and a zillion other things as well. Her passion lies in helping families create awesome villages for their autistic family members, providing academic support to autistic children, their families, school staff, and other mental health professionals through advocacy, professional development, and psychoeducation. So also, before we start, those watching on Autism ADHD TV, you're going to notice that maybe I have some facial differences today. As a lot of you know, I do take oral daily chemotherapy. One of my medications I take for severe Crohn's disease. And unfortunately, one of the side effects to this medication is skin cancer. So I often have to go in and get biopsies. So that's why I'm looking a little bit different today. But let's get started. That being said, we are talking again about teaching self-advocacy. And Keisha, you and I are big believers in this. We both have differently wired boys, both mental health therapists.
Right.
We are, again, mirroring each other in so many ways. It's never too late, right? Again, it's never too late to teach self-advocacy. But would you agree the younger, the better?
Absolutely. When we look at just research studies just on early intervention for children, on the autism spectrum, and even on children with ADHD, the studies and research shows us that early intervention is a positive indicator for later success. So if you look at that research, then to me, it stands to reason that if you're going to intervene early with the child with interventions, why not start early with the advocacy? Because they go hand in hand. If you picture two children, walking down the road, and one has a hat on that says interventions, and the other has a hat on that says advocacy, that's what it is. As you provide a child or children interventions and strategies to succeed, then to me, you must equip them with advocacy skills to allow them to, have their definition of a meaningful day, no matter where they are. Because the truth is, we're parents and we love our kids, and we'll do anything for them, but we cannot be with them 24/7. So if we can equip them with age-appropriate advocacy tools, then that will help them, become empowered to live in this world the way they see fit. And to be honest, it'll help us too as parents to know that they're out there and they can advocate for themselves.
I love that. And of course, as usual, you say 100 amazing things in one breath. I don't know how you do it. Okay, so like you were saying, you use the word must. And I think we need to think of it that way. It's not a maybe or, okay, we'll think about that later. No, it's a must at any age. And when you start this, these are basic things, and parents are busy. We're like doing a lot of things for our kids. We're running. And sometimes it's easier to do things for them. And that's very true. I have been absolutely in that spot. And I would imagine you have as well. But when you take the time you're setting them up for later success, later being able to advocate for themselves when you do simple, even choices when they're younger. Do you want the red cup or do you want the blue cup? Even if you know the
Right.
answer, even if you know
Right.
it's the red cup, ask them
Every
anyway.
time.
Every time, do it, and that's okay, because again, those are those
Right.
choices. Like you're saying, thank you for telling me. I like
Right.
when you tell me what you want or what you need. Or again, things like, okay, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Now, of course, as parents, and you might be thinking, they can't always get what they want. You're 100% right, because that's true for every human. But don't always assume, because you might get it wrong.
Right.
Even if you know the answer, ask them anyway, because that's great practice, right? For them saying what they want. And then
Absolutely.
tell them, right? Again, like I mentioned earlier, thank you for telling me what you want. I care about what you want. I'm glad that you're telling me, because if you don't tell me, I don't know. And even following up with comments like that can be an absolute game changer. Something I think about, Keisha, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are about this.
Okay.
I think about an IEP meeting.
Okay.
Over and over again. Here are all these people gathered in this room around this table deciding things for someone else. So when I think of myself as a human person, would I be cool with a bunch of people sitting around a table deciding everything for me, deciding what I need, deciding how I need it, deciding what my future looks like? I mean, I know that we're in those situations a lot, and kids need support, but there is no reason why that child cannot be participating in what is happening for their own life. I mean, when you think about it and you put yourself in their shoes, it's ridiculous.
So what I think is important in these IEP situations, or just when you're out in the community, or just living your life, is that the mindset needs to shift. Because what happens is that when parents and kids go into the IEP process, or an unknown, uncomfortable situation, they, like you said, they do feel like everybody else knows everything and I don't know anything, and I just have to sit back and be quiet and just take what they say. So if you pivot your mindset to a mindset of collaboration, and to know that you do have power in this situation, you do have a say, and that will help lessen the anxiety during these processes or during the IEP meeting. And then it'll also empower you to be able to speak up for yourself as a parent, or if you're the person on the spectrum or with ADHD, you can speak up for yourself. But that starts with learning. So as a person learns more about what's going on with them, as they learn the rules and regulations that govern that in public education, or in employment, as our babies, and I keep saying babies even though mine is 27 and 18.
Remember, they're always our babies when
They're always our babies. But as you learn and you gain knowledge, then that helps to empower you to be able to ask for what is legally and morally yours. Does that make sense? So if you go into an IEP meeting and you know the rules, you know the regulations, you know what you legally have a right to ask for, then you don't sit in the meeting afraid. You don't sit anxious. You go in, you address your issues, and you go through the process. So I have always been an advocate of learning what is going on in the situation, learning everything about autism that I can learn, learning everything about ADHD that I can, everything attached to it as far as a free and appropriate public education, IDEA, and all these acronyms that we're going to further discuss. I want to know what our children are entitled to. So when I enter into an IEP or 504 process, then I can confidently say, these are the things I'm asking for. This is why I'm asking for them. And what can we do as a team to bring these things about? Because I'm part of a team. I'm part of a team, and they can't do anything unless, I sign off on it anyway. So let's let it be collaborative so that no one leaves the meeting feeling beat up on. No one leaves the meeting upset or anxious, because at the end of the day, it's about the babies and making sure that they get everything they need. But it starts with knowledge.
I agree. And really, that child or teen or
Mhm.
young adult,
Right,
right? Everybody knowing their role,
right,
knowing their rights, knowing their role. This is for them. Now,
right,
something we started doing really early is our oldest son is like, okay, do you want to come to the meeting? This is what it looks like. No, I don't want to come. Okay. Well, if you don't want to come, that's absolutely fine. That is, I want you to feel comfortable, but I also want to make sure people know what you need. Here
right,
we are in a room and you're not here. I just want to make sure that I can speak for you, like what you want and what you need, what's working, what's
right,
not working. So having those discussions, knowing what is working for your child, and then bringing that to the table, because, this is too important. When he got older, I would just write down everything he said and he would look over it to make sure I got it right. Right. I would sort of scribe for him. And then I would take
right,
that to the meeting. Then we graduated to he would come in, read what he wanted, and then leave immediately so that we would start out the meeting that way. Then he sometimes would attend most of the meeting. It's really hard for him to sit. So he would
right,
just, if he had to leave, he had to leave. But
right.
being able to work that in, because it's about him. It's about no one
Absolutely.
else but him at school. So also at home is, again, like those choices, thanking kids, for telling you what they need. We have to really pay attention to this because, and I mentioned this last episode that we did together, this is too important.
Right,
We have to think ahead. Like you were saying, if my child is out in the community, what do we want them to be able to do? Now we're talking about safety. We're
right,
talking about basic things that we have to teach when they're younger and all the way through. Like you're saying, if somebody is behaving in a way around them that's uncomfortable for them,
right,
we need to figure out how to teach them to communicate, that's not what I want,
right,
or that is what I want. It just depends on what they want. Because a lot of times, and unfortunately, differently wired kids are taught comply, do what I say, don't question
right.
me. And that is not good. That's not good for safety. That's not healthy. And that's not good at all for their lives. So, we need to be open, and we need to be, even if it's something we don't want to hear.
Absolutely. So, going back to what you were saying about how differently wired kids are taught to comply or to conform. So, learning what's important about self advocacy is not only learning information about what's going on with you, but sharing that information with others as you are comfortable. I think that's important too, in order to build empathy with those around you, if possible. And that's not 100% possible. I mean, the world is just a world. So some people are just going to be mean, for lack of a better word, insensitive. Um, so you understand that and you explain that to your baby to the best of their ability to understand. And then you model. A lot of times we're modeling self-advocacy for our kids, and we don't even know we're doing it. They're just watching how we advocate for them, and then they're able to do that, for themselves. I know that that's happened for Aaron, my oldest, when he went to college. He called me one day, and I said, "Well, how was before classes started?" And I said, "Well, how was your day?" And he said, it went great. I went around to all of my instructors. I introduced myself. I let them know I have Asperger's and that I might need some help from time to time. Was that okay? And so that was, it made my heart smile, of course. But that was an example of me modeling advocacy for him, and also talking to him about, not being ashamed of being on the spectrum and asking for help when you need it. So to me, that's an example of, of self-advocacy, at least with, college. And of course, we talked about those things while he was in high school, just him talking, asking for help. He participated in IEP meetings. He would come to the meeting sometimes, or I would ask the question, what do you need that you're not getting? Because with people on the spectrum, sometimes you have to, not sometimes, a lot of times you have to be very specific in what you're asking. So, I would ask, and he would think about it, and then I would write it down. And I was looking at my, like an old flash drive the other day, and oh my God, I had like Word documents, IEP meeting concerns, and Aaron's IEP meeting, and oh my goodness, from years ago. But I think modeling, getting them to learn information about themselves that they can then share with others, and making sure that they're comfortable sharing, and then enabling them, empowering them to ask for help when they need it, and then to engage in a collaboration with those around them, so that their needs are met.
Yeah, and I think that is so good. Sometimes, especially if you feel like you have grown up and you haven't been heard,
Mm-hmm.
and your needs haven't been met, it's going to be harder and harder to trust people to tell them. So again, it's never too late as usual, but is early as we possibly can. What's also a great idea, and this is at school or wherever the person is that you're supporting, if you're a child or a student or a client, we want to think about having a point person that they feel comfortable with. So maybe they need something, but they don't feel comfortable communicating to the person that they're with. They can then go to a person they trust, who they know will listen to them and then help them self-advocate. And so I think that's really an important one. I know that with the curriculum Unstuck and On Target, that's something that they really emphasize, is having, especially at school, having that point person, having that trusted person that they can go to and access. Not all kids feel comfortable asking for help in class in front of their students, other students. They may not feel comfortable with, a particular teacher or something. So, but at least there's somebody that they can go to let their needs be known. And, I also think supporting them and communicating what that they need, right? So not long ago, this is just an example, a person who was having a meltdown when it was time to leave the classroom to take the meds for ADHD, right? So the assumption was that, maybe they didn't like the taste of the medication, maybe they didn't like the way it feels. I mean, there's so many possibilities. And so, what ended up happening where there was a lot of wrong assumptions, and the person didn't want to leave the classroom because they were so afraid they were going to miss something. That was it. It didn't have anything to do with the medication. So you can see that we need to keep and emphasize that communication. Like, we've got to be curious, we've got to be open to the possibilities, because what I see over and over again, well-meaning people set up these behavior plans. And when we miss it completely, and they're not going to work because we're not listening to the child, right? We're not listening to the teenager. We're not listening to the adult and what really is their concern with this, because we will miss it. We've got to have this piece, this self-advocacy piece, for, again, a million reasons.
So many times I'll ask a teacher or administrator or a parent. Well, after a situation, a meltdown, which I really like, I wish they wouldn't call them meltdowns. I just call it like a communication issue, because that is that child's way of saying something's not right. So it's just the indicator. But I'll ask, well, did y'all ask the child what was going on? And sometimes they'll kind of look like a deer in headlights, like it never occurred to me. And I understand that, because as parents or as educators, as therapists, like you want to answer the question, or you want to solve the problem, so you dive right in. But a lot of times the answers are like common sense. Like many parents come to me, just clients in general with issues, and I'll say a lot of times, what the answer is. You're looking to me for validation. So my job, and just about every aspect of what I do, is to work myself out of a job. It feels like what we do is rocket science, when it is not. It is not rocket science. We have to jump through a lot of hoops to get our licenses and certifications and things like that. But sometimes at the bottom of it, it's just like common sense approaches, common sense interventions that take no time to implement. You just have to be consistent with it, and then you're successful.
I love that you said that, because it really is figuring it out, and that child is the person to ask, because we're talking about them. Like you said, it sounds like common sense, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. And so, again, just another example of how we can really get it wrong. A lot of times I'll see the assumption of, I just don't want to do this work, where it's non-compliance, I don't like it, I'd rather go into a corner. But really what it was is safety. This person didn't feel safe. Now, I don't know about you, but if I don't feel safe, I'm really not going to be up for any work, because safety is basic, right? Like you would think that would be number one. So, again, we don't want to get this wrong. This is too important. And this child needs to be heard. We really don't want our children to grow up and say yes to everything that someone is, and that's not okay. And that sets them up for lots of unsafe situations. Lately, just an example, for my oldest son, he was working at a fast food restaurant for a while. I had been, working with the manager. We had a lot of visuals. We had a lot of things in place for him. There were certain jobs that, seemed to be a better fit for him. He was doing well there, and he decided he wanted to quit. And I had all the feelings, right? I was like, wait a minute, you're doing pretty well at this job, and you've got supports in place in this job. But I really had to stop and check myself and say, okay, what is it he wants, right? Like, this isn't about me. What is it? He said, I need a change. I want something different. And so I just had to shut my mouth, my big old mouth, because I was worried. And really what was coming up for me, I think, was fear. Because I think fear is underlining for a lot of us. We want our babies, and again, we're being respectful when we say that, because they are our babies, no matter what. And no matter how old they are. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? And I found myself like really questioning more than I should have. But I wanted to support him in what he wanted. So we supported him, getting the job, another job, even though it took a little while, but he did start his new job last week. And he works like a few hours on the weekends. And I was so proud of him, So what I realized, it was my fear and how easily we can keep our kids back, and we don't mean to. But I'm like, you know what? I want you to be heard. I want you to tell me what you think. I'm glad you're sharing how you're feeling with me. And then I had to do some inner work, on that.
Of course, because that's happened to me twice. Of course, I'll tell anybody, like, if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, you need to get a new therapist. Everybody, everybody has issues. Like, I mean, therapists, we just have, I'm like Liam Neeson in take all the Taken movies. Like, what we have is a certain set of skills, but we are not, magicians. Like, we have issues too. So we have to have, it's for me, it's important for therapists to have a therapist so that we can work our own issues out apart from therapy. Because if we don't work our own issues out, they will creep in our work with our clients. But many of us as parents, but especially as differently wired parents, yeah, I'm differently wired because I have ADHD. And then on top of that, my kids are differently wired. Then there's an underlying undercurrent of fear that's always there, because your internal dialogue is that they won't be able to take care of themselves. And because you have that underlying internal dialogue, that drives everything. We know from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, how your internal dialogue drives everything. So I've had to do some work myself over the years as my children have come to me with, I need a change, I need a break. And because I'm also kind of type A type person. So you tell me what you want to do. I'm the case manager. I'm going to explore all the options. I'm going to say, okay, it's A, B, or C. Which one do you want? You choose the option, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it in place. So I've had to learn over the years to back away and to modify my expectations to meet their expectations, and to always, love them according to their love language and not my love language, which is something I always have to be mindful of. I know my youngest son, he's a physical touch person. So, I'll say something like, you want to fill up your love tank? And, to us, that means like a hug. So he was like, yep. So, I'll hug him and I'm like, let me know when it's full. And, then we'll hug. He was like, okay, it's full. And so that's how we go. But it's so easy for us as parents to take, things personally when our children tell us they don't want to do something, because our plans are awesome, right? So everyone should love them and always go through with the plan, because our vision is, the best vision. But as country folks say, come to find out, it's not. It's what they want to do that makes them happy. On the other side of that, though, is part of being an appropriate or an effective self advocate is to understand, as far as you can understand, that your behavior has a consequence, positive or negative. So while I support you want to change jobs, I support that. I need you to understand that perhaps there may be some changes as a result of you changing your job. There may be a transportation issue you might have to work out. There may be a money issue you might have to work out. We have to learn, new boss, new processes, things like that. So it's a balance between enabling and empowering, that parents walk a very, it's a tightrope. And sometimes you're empowering, sometimes you're enabling. But what I've learned to do with my boys is apologize when I'm wrong, apologize when I made mistakes. I was raised kind of strict, Southern Baptist, African American, hard, strong community where what parents said you did, and you didn't question it, and they didn't really apologize for anything. So as a parent, I've learned how to have a balance of sorts and just be able to say, I'm wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry. What do you need from me that you're not getting? But also on the other side, please understand that your behaviors have consequences. Please understand that. And I'm going to support you through mistakes, but I'm being country. I'm not going to co-sign a lot of foolish stuff either. So, I mean, that's just my personality. I'm going to support you, but please don't, do like a lot of continuously things, it's foolish. I don't have any other country word but foolish. Just foolish stuff that, that costs you, that costs us, that puts you in peril, that causes some type of biopsychosocial spiritual crisis, because we're so, we can become enmeshed with our children, especially our differently wired kids. Everything is felt by everybody. So while you're trying to empower, you're also trying to separate and differentiate from them. It's a lot, honey. Sometimes it feels like a soup sandwich, but you do the best you can.
Okay, so again, 100 things, Keisha. You do it every time. I love it, but I'm like, okay, I have this like running thing in my head. Oh, that was so good. That was so good. That was so good. So I will say too, I love that you were saying we have to do our own work. We have to really do the work of, if you're a parent, if you're a therapist, if you are a teacher, if you've got some big feelings coming up, figure it out. Like, what's happening in there? Instead of just reacting to what the child is doing or the situation, figure out. Because again, I'm a therapist. I got a therapist, I do.
Right.
And looking at it in a way where, what is happening for me in this moment? And again, it can be fear, it can be confusion, it could be, well, I want them to be successful. I want this for them. Or could be, we need to hurry. It could be all the things, right?
Right.
And so looking inside ourselves, and again, coming back and asking yourself some questions. Why is this big for me? How do I want to support my child? Am I listening to what they need? And like you said, there's also that balance, because we, as parents, as therapists, as teachers, we need to guide, right? But we need to listen at the same time, and both are possible.
Right.
Are possible. So, again, there are consequences for what we do, for what everyone does, but looking at it like, what would be the cause of that person's discomfort? Just like we're looking at our own discomfort, what might be underlining in that discomfort? And I love that you talked about modeling. That is a game changer. When your child can see you modeling, like, this is how I'm feeling, or I'm thinking about this, like problem solving, modeling that. I want this, but I see that's not possible. So whether it's a plan A or plan B situation, all of those things help. Even if they're a little, you're already doing it in your head. Just do it out loud. Right? Just do it out loud. And again, if it's appropriate, right? Like, it's not always appropriate to put it out there out loud, but most of the time it is. And like, okay, so, I want my child to participate in this meeting somehow, but it's got to work for them. Let me see how it's going to work for them. And again, being creative and being open and figuring that out. My fear about the job was exactly what you said. So that's what I walked him through. So how do you feel when you may need to educate your new boss who doesn't know you, about what you need or how you need it? And then practicing those things. Right?
Practicing is very important. We did that a lot with Aaron in his younger years at home. Just really, we did, the social stories, and then we practiced, particular skills. And so he was ready when it was time to go out into the world. He was ready to, he had his script, that this is what, he says. And then we would debrief, after, situations, how did you feel about that? What are some options? What do you feel like you could have done better? That type of thing. So that's important.
And that would be great modeling too for us as parents or therapists or teachers, is like you said, apologizing. What could I have done better? I didn't think through that decision like I should have. What I should have done is this. And again, that's modeling, this humanness, because we often don't do that. We don't do it enough.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with me today. And
it's always fun.
It's so much fun hanging out with you. And I have really exciting news for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you super ready?
I'm super
I had some 80s come out there for a second. That was the 80s. You talk about country and I'm like, are you super ready? That happens sometimes when I get really excited. Okay. this is our 100th episode.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Congratulations.
I'm so excited that you
special.
Are the 100th person. And what's really exciting about this, again, the opportunity, the mission of the Autism ADHD podcast and Autism ADHD TV is let's learn more. Let's hear from people who, neurodivergent, neurodiverse people who have their experiences, learning from them, learning from those who support them, learning about ourselves, again, as parents and professionals, figuring out how we can do better. So I am thrilled that we are at our 100th episode.
Awesome.
So again, thanks so much for coming on with me. And I hope that you'll come back and see me soon.
I sure will. This is always a party. I always enjoy it.
It's always a party. That's right. I love it. Okay, Keisha, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Right, take care.
Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like this episode, please share it with someone. It may just be what they need to watch today. If you're a parent, I'd love if you came on over and joined our Facebook group, Autism ADHD Group for Parents. If you're a therapist or educator, come on over to our group, Autism ADHD Group for Therapists and Educators. You're going to find those links right down there in the notes. Thanks so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.